Hey guys, Funky Music, and today I want to talk about healing Halion as a Resto Druid specifically. Now, I know I get a lot of questions about how to heal certain bosses, and I think I've gone over a video where I cover pretty much all the Ice Crown bosses, but I never really have done a video in depth for Halion healing as a Restoration Druid. Okay, so here we have a picture. This is pre-pull, and you're going to see I'm standing way over here by the tank. Now, Funky, why are you standing way over here by the tank? Aren't you afraid of cleave? Blah, 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 blah. The first hit he does is going to be a melee swing. It's not going to be a breath, so we're okay standing here. We'll be all right because we'll run in before he does a breath, and we'll avoid all the damage. So the reason I'm over here is because I like being close. I like to pre-hot from this position here, the way I can reach the tank, because the tank's going to be the only one taking damage here in this first part. So I like to get a regrowth on him, get my rejuve up, get my idol fully procced. And here you're also going to see that I have Nature Swiftness on and ready to go. That's because when that first hit comes out, everyone else is busy moving in. Druids, being the mobile healers that we are, we can easily heal this up with a Swift Mend, or we can have a Nature Swiftness healing touch ready to go, which is where I usually end up going, because I don't think I need Nature Swiftness anywhere else in between here. I think usually I save my Swift Mends for when we're going underneath the belly for transition for the Meteor. Since everyone's moving and nobody has time to stop healing, I usually try to save my Swift Mend for that moment. But this is a good position to be in. You could do everything you need to pre-pull, get the tank all hotted up, ready to go, get your idol procced, ready to go. If you want to use Nature Swiftness here, I'm not going to be against it, because it'll be off cooldown by the time you need it again down in the basement. And when you move, when I call the Shadow Realm the basement, so if my old ass calls it that, and you don't understand what I'm saying, Shadow Realm for me is basement. So by the time it comes off cooldown again, you'll be in the Shadow Realm, aka the basement, and you should have it off cooldown when you need it in Phase 3. The only thing you should really have to heal in Phase 1 here is the tank. There will be some damage for, the ads that come out on the off tank a little bit. Some of your DPS might pull a little bit of aggro, and, flames are an issue, but they are not something that's going to affect our healing. It's not something I'm going to pre-heal. I'm not going to go ahead and waste a ton of mana on rejuves from flames, because you may or may not, if your guild is decent enough, they'd be probably going to be avoiding the flame altogether if they use their eyeballs and can move their character. So I'm not going to waste the mana pre-hotting something that may or may not happen at all, and more than likely probably won't if you have proper positioning. So your main focus here is the tank. You want to be using every clear casting you can on the tank for Life Bloom. This comes in really handy if you could time it out right for when Meteor comes out, so you can save your Swift Mend. Please try and do that. That's generally where I like to try to get my Life Bloom to go. It is hard to control, but again, use your clear casting procs on that. Try to keep that tank up almost all the time. You're going to be trying to keep as many hots on him as you can, and using Nourish as well as keep regrowth on him, and try to keep some Life Bloom on him as well, especially, again, using clear casting procs to do that. Okay, so start of Phase 2, your tank's in, you want to go in. If you can pre-hot the tank before he goes in, that's a highly ideal thing to do. Depending on who your tank is, you may already have hots on him or not, but you want to pre-hot the tank. When we're going through here, the first thing you're going to see me do is GTS Tranquility. Now, why do I GTS Tranquility right off the rip? The raid is taking the most damage at this point in time. It always seems like that. B, everyone else is moving into position, trying to avoid Halion, get stacked up. So there's a lot of healing that needs to be done here. So this is where I will always proc my GTS and Tranquility, thus getting my whole entire healing group up, getting that GTS proc out there for it to start healing the raid as well. Now, the key thing with GTS, and I may not do it in this clip exactly, because I think we ended up wiping in this clip here specifically, but you'll want to keep a balance between Wild Growth and using the proc on it. You don't want to drop Wild Growth just because you have GTS up and you want to spam some regrowth here and there in order to proc it. However, the most amount of damage, again, is right at the rip because everyone is moving. So once the damage kind of stabilizes, you don't want to be spamming anything more to proc GTS. You kind of want to move on from that and get into your Wild Growth rejuve spam. It's always important at this phase, again, try to always keep hots on the tank. at all times. Try to keep a regrowth on him. Try it at all times to keep a rejuvenation on him. And when you can, use your clear castings for life blooms on the tank. This is very important, and you want to be saving your Swiftmend. Now, Funky, why should you be saving your Swiftmend in Phase 2? Well, when a healer, especially the H-Pal, gets or has a chance more so in Phase 3, not so much in Phase 2. In Phase 2 here, where the whole group is pretty much down here, you can go ahead and burn your Swiftmend at will. But in Phase 3, you're going to kind of want to save that just in case one of your healers, depending on how many you have. In this case, we had 3 of us down there in the Shadow Realm. You're going to want to save that in case one of them gets a consumption on them and they have to move. Druids have the absolute X factor when it comes to hitting a target on the move for damn near 30 to 40k, as Swiftmend seems to go off for sometimes. So we have a gigantic heal that we can burn, a big cooldown we can burn, plus you'll have Nature Swiftness if it's off cooldown, which it should be, to burn on the tank. Now, Paladins do have Holy Shock. They can do a few things. Shamans can Nature Swiftness as well, but Druids have 2 big heals at their fingertips with Swiftmend and with your Nature Swiftness macro into a Healing Touch, or Regrowth, whatever you are using at that situation, where you can get some healing going really easy while staying on the move. You don't have to stop and cast like Holy Paladins or Shamans do. So we're the best at doing this. It's best that you save it for those crucial times rather than burn it when you don't need it. Another thing that you want to do as a Resto Druid here, or maybe even any healer really, is kind of stay a little bit further towards the wall. Druids, obviously, more mobile. They can, move around a lot more than other classes can. Don't need to be stacked up, etc., etc. You want to make sure you are in range of the totems, obviously, but standing out further gets you ahead of the curve when it comes to consumption. You're closer to the wall, you're a healer, you're a priority. So if you get a little bit closer to the wall, stand away from your group a little bit more, that way you're ready to run out to the wall. In case you do get consumption, you're already ahead of the curve because you're halfway there. You don't have to move from the melee group all the way to the wall. You're already positioned halfway in between, so you can hurry up, get to the wall, get dispel yourself, whatever, and get back as soon as possible. I see a lot of people stacking in a little bit far too close, more than what they need to be with the group. As long as you have your positioning right and you're in a straight line with them and they're moving properly and avoiding cutters, you should be fine just by going off of where they currently are standing, or you could pay attention to where the orbs are and position yourself properly. Either way, this is a good thing that you want to be doing here. Get to the wall easier, more healing, you're back in the group, you can get rid of the debuff real quick, and you don't have to worry about it as much. Alright, so let's talk about the other thing you're going to have to worry about in Phase 2 and in Phase 3. You're going to be worried about cutters. Okay, there's these purple balls that'll go around here. It's very important that you have your camera distance set to almost as far out as you can probably get it. This will allow you to see cutters better, see the positioning of the raid, see everything. It's important for healers to see everything and to zoom out to max. Since we do keep our eyes on grid, our positioning, there's a lot of things that we're watching for. Especially if you're calling things out, you're a raid leader, you're also watching for timers and etc., etc. So this is important to have your max zoom. It's also great on this fight to have max zoom, as you can see where the purple balls are and where the cutters are about to begin. Now, once the cutters go off and they stop, one pass of the purple ball, basically the next one that is not activated that comes across, as we'll show here, so if you could time this out properly and keep an eye on that ball, once you know it's going past you, it's almost ready for you to start moving again to avoid the next set of cutters. This is why, again, it's important to have that max camera distance. You can see that visually, know when to move. You don't have to rely on watching other people move. You don't want to rely on other people getting you killed for something that you could have avoided. You want to be able to see this, know it, watch your DBM, watch your big wigs, whatever you're using as well in order to do this. I always visually did it because DBM timers were always so far off on Warmane. They're way better now, I should say, but they were used to be way off, so I always did this visually. So again, once the cutter ends and that ball comes around again, get ready to move. Once it reaches his back tail, because the next set of cutters is about to go off. So, Funky, what's your healing on this exactly? What's your spell breakdown? So here is the World of Log kill, and a breakdown of what each heal did, etc., etc. Now, Rejuvenation, Wild Growth, of course, will still be your bread and butter. Protection of Ancient Kings, Regrowth here and there. Rejuvenation, that's the 4-set proc you see there above Twilight Renewal. The Twilight Renewal, GTS. Where to use your GTS. GTS becomes way less effective in Phase 3 because there's way less targets to heal. However, if you do have time to use it when cutters are not out, or if you have Heroism out, depending on when you plan on burning Heroism, how many Shamans you have, etc., etc., go ahead and burn it for that time. But other than that, Twilight Renewal is not going to get a whole lot of love come about Phase 3. So let's go on to Life Bloom. Wow, that's really up there compared to how it usually is, right? And that's the proc of Life Bloom. That's the actual bloom of the heal. So, as you can tell, I was using Life Bloom quite a bit in this fight. It even actually did more healing than Nourish in this fight. That's because our main job as being a third healer in this fight is basically to keep the raid up while the other two healers focus the tank. Now, that's not saying that you don't heal the tank. Obviously, most of my Life Bloom went towards the tank, but it is out there where it is above Nourish even. Living Seed as well did a lot of work in this fight. And then again, you got Swiftmen, and then the Life Bloom. The second one you see there on the list, right above Echoes of Light, is the tick from Life Bloom, not the actual bloom itself. And then Tranquility, and then you're going to wonder, what the fuck Healing Touch? Again, this is your Nature Swiftness macro to your Healing Touch. I believe I ended up using one of my regrowths instead during one of the 3 or 4 times it came off cooldown. And I got some bad procs with it as well, as in I went to go pop it and the healer was already getting hit with a Holy Light or, Healing Wave or something like that, totally negating my heal. So Healing Touch didn't do a whole lot for me. This one, it did in previous pulls, but not as effective. So hopefully, guys, I answered some of your questions on how to heal Halion as a Restoration Druid. Any more questions, please leave them in the comments below. I know there's probably going to be a whole lot of things about, what I use here in this situation. And guys, every situation is going to vary a little bit to each degree. That's the great thing about healing is nothing's ever really the same. Sure, the boss might cast the same abilities and do the same damage, but the amount of people being retarded or not retarded always changes, if people are using cooldowns correctly or not. So things always change, and that will change what heal you choose to use. This is why there's no real healing rotation out there, because damage is kind of RNG. It's really up to the player and their brain. And again, if you're using the proper cooldowns, avoiding things that can cause damage, etc., etc. So, yeah. Anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you later.